Right. Okay. So I'm going to let each of these people introduce themselves. They are quite sitting quite. Karen, do you want to move out a little bit? Yeah. No.
Did we write down intimate?
Yeah, we did. Yes. Friendly. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves, so I don't do some kind of bumbling Wikipedia introduction of them all. And they, a couple of minutes just talking about why they're here, who they are, what they do, what the links are. So if I start with Karen on the end, please.
Thank you very much. I'm Karen Lockin. I have my own business and marketing agency that will be 12 in November, Evolve Business Developments. I'm also here representing Scunthorpe Rugby Club because I work with them around promotion, marketing and communications. Scunthorpe girl, born and bred, haven't left. I've lived here for eternity, lived in town and still now live very luckily sort of near Central Park, so absolutely love the area. The reason I'm here is because of that. I also do a lot of volunteer work with Scunthorpe Samaritans and look at different ways. I'm also on the board for Ongo Communities. Any way that I feel I can help promote the area and promote the people that we've got here, the businesses that we've got here, the green space that we've got here, is something I want to be involved in. So hence, as soon as I started to see Scunthorpe Tomorrow actually getting up and running, and was like, I need to be involved in that, please. How do I give my time to that? How do we continue to promote this area in a way that is positive? Got some negatives, everywhere has, but for me, it's looking at sort of the good things that have all come out on that list. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Thank you very much. Karen was one of the first people that I met when I set up my business 10 years ago. We had a lovely coffee and a bite to eat at Pink Pig. Shout out to Sally and her crew. So it's lovely to be sitting here with her today. Next we have Rob.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Rob Allen. So I'm Scunthorpe born and bred. In fact, my dad actually grew up a few streets away from where we are today on Cecil Crescent in Crosby. Massively passionate about the area. I guess for me, probably the sort of single most defining sort of thing of my life is I grew up as a young carer to my dad who was disabled. And I think sort of that meant heavily reliant on our amazing local services in Scunthorpe, but also just the sort of community and help, not just from family, but friends and neighbours and just the sort of wider community. And so that sort of runs through me like a stick of rock. And I'm just sort of still so immensely grateful to so many people in this town who sort of created so many opportunities for me and my family. I guess like quite a lot of people growing up in Scunthorpe, I sort of moved away for work. So my sort of career's been spent in and around central government, both as a civil servant and as a consultant working with government, and I guess also felt that by dint of having now lived, I think probably away from the areas about as long as I spent growing up here, that also gives me a bit of a perspective on the genuine opportunities. And you've stolen my line, Alex, about the Humber being to energy what the City of London is financial services. But I just think there is so much potential in this area, and so much of it isn't realised yet. So that's what I'm all about, and looking forward to exploring further.
Lovely stuff, thank you. Sorry for stealing the line, but got you the chance to reiterate it. So that's what it's all about. And one of the things is that, when you get bored of saying something, that's just about when people are starting to listen. And I think that's what we're doing here today. We're really repeating the same messages and really repeating the same themes. So it's good to hear that coming through. So I'll hand over to Ian Sharp now.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. So, my name is Ian Sharp. I'm originally from Scunthorpe. I used to live on Bolton Avenue, and then we moved when I was 5 to Bellingham Road, and I was there until I was 19, and then I moved to London to study. I'm probably here because I'm one of the new co-owners of Scunthorpe United, but I'm very much still a Scunthorpe lad, even though I've lived in London now for nearly 25 years. So I think I probably have quite an interesting perspective on being kind of an insider, but with an outsider's perspective, particularly with the football club. Also, my day job really is I went to drama school, so I studied as an actor. And about 10 years into my acting career, I started producing. So my very first thing was a play about football. Clearly, I'm very passionate about football. And that play got turned into a movie. And that really started my wife's career in film and television producing. So I probably produced several shows and about 20 or so movies. Predominantly feature films is what I do. So I'm happily here to talk to any creators in the room. Aside from that, I own probably one of the biggest kind of talent agencies in London. So I'm all about giving opportunities to creatives. That's a big part of who I am. Really, is about kind of. I think that underrated word is quite. I take that on board. So I'm trying to think what else is useful to talk about. But yeah, I'm here. I want to meet everybody. I'm exceptionally proud of my background. It's definitely been an advantage, I would say. You know, I'm from a council estate, and I've used it to my advantage where I just there was no pathway. I made my own pathway, and I'm a big believer in that. So I shout about that a lot because I think you've got to see it to believe it. So I'm a big champion of the underdog. So that's probably why I'm here.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ian. My role today is no way an audition for any of his forthcoming films. If you need a lanky Lancastrian to... no, never mind, next time. And yeah, to Jono.
Hello, I'm Jono, as the introduction would suggest. And also well done for being brave enough for allowing me a microphone and to sit in front of people. So this is quite fun for me. So I'm Jono. I'm the, whatever you want to call it, director of Curly's Athletes, which is named after my hair. We'll have a whole conversation around that later. We run community and charity-centric physical activity events, so sporting events. Locally, that would be the Big Green Scunthorpe 10K. We run events out of Normanby. And as we would introduce ourselves, we run events from Scunthorpe to Blenheim Palace. And that in itself is part of the thing that we want to do, is how we change that image of the area. I, too, as everyone else seems to have done, went to London after being local to this to go and work, and most of my life was spent introducing and explaining where Scunthorpe is and that it's not by the sea. Or in Manchester. Or in Manchester. So there's definitely something. That was 20 years ago, but things have changed. There's a byproduct to me. I also am a director of strategy and place for Active Lincolnshire, which is a charity. My world is around physical activity. That's for me. And we've got some opportunities with health inequalities, and a great active community also supports the economy. It supports tourism and everything like that. So I'm very governed towards sort of that area. I am massively proud to be from Scunthorpe, North Lincolnshire. My family are all here. I was fortunate to move back again kind of 3 years ago. My nan and granddad lived in Ashby. Granddad was on the locomotions on the steelworks. My dad worked on steelworks as a crane driver. I got to work as a cleaner. I was terrible and fell asleep. But growing up, sorry, is this what I meant to do? This town was everything to me. It shaped me. It shaped everything that I was. It was Scunny Leisure Centre. It was nights out at Henry's. It was good or bad or indifferent. It shaped everything that I am sort of for now. And I just think it's really exciting to be involved in this. It's a massive opportunity. And all those words that are on that board are positive, forward thinking. And yeah, I think this is an event. Is like an altruistic networking event. So it's a networking event to come together for a greater good. And I'm enthused. I think that's
good. No, that's very good. Thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. So I think you can start to pick up on the themes of Scunthorpe Tomorrow and the purpose of the group about building connections and changing the narrative really, really importantly. And I think that what we want to do today is to hear from these guys about what their take on that is, specifically around those areas. But also, I'd love to. You guys just to throw some questions at them, and it can be as deep or as shallow as you like. But I think that one of the things that really drew me to this group was the fact that they're like many other groups. They're passionate about the area, about what's happening here, and people who have grown up here and never left, and what their take on it is. But also, they're pulling people in from outside, and I think that's really, really important to get people who have learned stuff from elsewhere, who've started here and gone away and then picked up something from outside and then bring it back. What can they do with that? How can they start to sort of change people's perceptions of things? And you don't know until you've tried something. And I think that's something that lots of sort of industrial towns in particular are starting to learn. So, as this group, what can Scunthorpe learn from what other towns are doing? If you've got some examples of other places, I've already mentioned my sort of home area of Wigan, Ormskirk, Liverpool. There's a lot going on over there. What can we learn from them that we can apply here using the Scunthorpe sort of lilt, I suppose? And it's a really, really fascinating town. The history of the place, where people have come from and settled here, what's kind of brought it all together, what the future looks like, what's going to sort of gel it all together in the future. So I do have a few kind of prepared questions, and I'll just start off with one of those. And this is a bit sort of flippant in a way, but is there anyone who'd like to say how they would describe Scunthorpe to somebody who has never been here? And it can't just be it's not by the sea. What would you honestly say about the town and the people?
I'm happy to go with that one. So I was mentioning this morning when we was having a bit of a chat, we were very lucky that we've got some friends who live in Wilmslow. And we used to do trips over to Wilmslow and Manchester, and they used to come back and do trips over to Scunthorpe. And when we sort of met them on holiday, definitely was a feel there that we'd got the good end of the deal. Like we're going to be heading to Manchester every few months and sort of having a look around that city, and they're going to be coming to Scunthorpe. And I was thinking back about how we described it to them, and it was very much a case of we've got some absolutely beautiful spaces. We really have got some beautiful areas. We've got a lot of very interesting businesses, as we've mentioned, but we have also got some areas of deprivation, and we've got some areas that require, a little bit of love and a little bit of support. But overall, the people that are actually here make the place. And I threw it into a WhatsApp group with them last night and sort of said, look, I was coming on here. How would you describe Scunthorpe? What would you say? And we did the whole, Henrys and Schnapps in our 20s and things like that. So we've got some interesting reminiscing stories on there. But then, God love them, they came back to me and sort of said, actually, very welcoming, very supportive of local businesses. And they sort of said, you've got some really lovely places. They were remembering Nornby Hall. They were thinking about Pink Pig. They were thinking about Play Avenue. They were thinking about, Plate Central Park, places we've taken them when they're here. And now that they're bringing their children to Scunthorpe to have weekends over here with us. So yeah, we've got some really, really lovely areas. We have also got some areas that just need a little bit of love.
Which is the case everywhere, isn't it? And I think it's one of the things that struck me when I first came here was just how much green space there is. And, I'd spent 15 years living in London, and people always talk about, there's loads of parks in London, it's so green, it's such a green city. I came up here expecting it to be incredibly industrial. And actually, I was blown away taking a wander through Central Park, just like, this is incredible. But it's kind of hidden away unless you go and find it, or unless you know it's there. So thanks for that, Karen. Is there anyone else who'd like to offer their insight into that?
I mean, I guess maybe just a couple of builds on that. So I agree absolutely. And the sort of phrase that was going through my head, and I think someone captured it earlier, was sort of hidden gems, because there are so many amazing spaces, amenities, services, assets, but they're sort of all in different places. And actually, there's something for me about, if where would you start as a first-time visitor to Scunthorpe? Okay, you might get off the train station. When you get off the train station, you've got a 10-minute walk into town centre. I mean, we can't do anything about that, but there's just something about the sort of entry point. Obviously, the high street, and this is the case in every high street up and down the UK, because I spend too much of my time in them, but that doesn't help us. It's not great, far from it. But again, actually, if you go down to Elizabeth Quarter, Elizabeth Square, down at the bottom end of town beyond the library, we've got a fantastic new public space there with actually, A grades of office space and other sort of amenities. You could be in a square in Lincoln or Leeds or Manchester, but, it's at the bottom end of town. A lot of people still don't know about it. So there's something for me about how do we sort of connect, to use a Scunthorpe Tomorrow word, how do we sort of connect some of the great things that are and just sort of make more people aware of them? But there were some practical challenges in terms of people sort of accessing the different spaces. I mean, you've got to spend a lot of time in a car if you live in Scunthorpe.
We could go on an electric scooter around they're pretty cool.
It's an idea, yeah.
Thank you for that. I mean, do you think that enough is being done? And this is not sort of laying at anyone's door at all. This is a collective thing. But do you think enough is being done to promote the fact that there is that awesome work that's being done? There was an event the other day at 2021, and that would look fantastic. And you think, is there enough that's being done to promote those things? And if not, why not? And what more could we do? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think one of the key things is actually events like this. So one of the things that everyone's repeating is we've got loads of great facilities, we've got loads of great things, we've got loads of green spaces, we've actually got a lot. And for us, just even moving back to the area, the amount of stuff per resident is great, just in terms of accessibility. You're not queuing in traffic, you're not doing all this. So there's a lot of big open spaces. Even just going shopping is actually easy compared to, to other places in the world which are massively overpopulated. I think one of our biggest challenges is sometimes our almost remoteness, and part of this group's responsibility is how we almost network the area. So I remember that, and when I first moved to London as a youth, that actually we found a gathering of people all from northern towns that all seemed to group together into a lump, because no one else could really understand what we were on about. But you connect up with all the guys from Wigan and X, Y, and then you create this sort of northern lump that would then go around to the certain locations. So we're not very good, particularly at kind of networking and integrating. We just find others like us and go, oh, right, you're from Rotherham. Oh, we could talk to each other, but let's not go in. And I think if we can do anything as part of this, it's actually giving us a story to be able to go and network, and how we push North Lincolnshire almost out of North Lincolnshire. And I think that's a huge opportunity for this collective group of how we do that through our different businesses, means, networks and connection. Because I think there's a lot here, and that's going to help bring people in. And if we can get so we're at a stage where people don't have to choose to leave, that they can choose to stay to pursue whatever it is they want. That's the ultimate aim.
It's definitely a push and pull, isn't it? You want to pull people in from elsewhere, and people often talk about places as being, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and then they talk about the pull, the push away. Well, you can get to Leeds in an hour. You can get to. You think, well, you can get from Leeds in an hour. Let's look at it that way. Let's spin it around, because if you're in Leeds doing something, why wouldn't you come and work for a brilliant business? And there are lots of brilliant businesses around here. So there's so much. And I think we just need to reframe. And I know that word is used a lot and then not really explained, or nothing's really done with it. And again, this driving action from today, if there are 70 people in the room and everyone just tells one person, and then they go and tell one person, that we're starting to spread that news, and that network idea is, is absolutely key to this. So thank you. Thanks, Johnny. Ian, anything?
I'm conscious of, obviously, film and TV is a bit of a bubble industry, really. It's very insular. But yes, a lot of the times when I say, I really have to shout the fact that I'm from Scunthorpe, because in my world, you don't get into film and TV if you're from Scunthorpe. It's just kind of not the norm, but obviously I've never believed in that. I think obviously when I mention that I'm from Scunthorpe, if they do know the area, it's normally about the steelworks, and how the steelworks is unfortunately it's struggling. But for me, it's well, what's the new identity then? And I appreciate the steelworks is a huge part of our history, our fabric. But moving forward, what else can we be? And I think that's where I really kind of go above and beyond. And I was on a panel the other month actually, where I was speaking about Lincolnshire, and I don't know if that's a cultural thing where we kind of keep things to our chest, or we're not quite proud of the fact that we're the yellow bellies or whatever it is. Where for me, I was like, it was such a competitive advantage that I was from Scunthorpe, because it gave me that resilience, that kind of I'll show you attitude, which I think we have, right? But I think what I'd like to get from this is don't do it alone. I mean that wonderful story, which obviously has gone a bit tragically wrong, but I was that kid at Josh. I was that kid from that estate that needed that kind of role model. Yeah, and I got it. Luckily, I got it from movies. And then I just I would just go down that rabbit hole and go like my heroes. If I think about it, they're like Sylvester Stallone. It's people like that, But they actually made their own opportunities. So I just hope that if there's anyone in the room that has those kinds of aspirations, and it doesn't have to be anything to do with film or TV, but it's like, but you feel like you're alone. You're actually not. You know what I mean? There are other people in the room that want to support you. And just luckily, I had a teacher called Kay Travis who just believed in me and gave me a little bit of funding. And, and I go back to the fact that I used that framing of, small town, steelworks, whatever, like council, whatever. Like, I was like, yeah, it is me. And I took ownership of that. And it kind of went in my favor. So yeah.
It's interesting. You talk about role models there, because this is something that I think about for areas like this, where do we have enough role models, and are they sort of championed well enough? Are people talking about how it's almost embarrassing that they're from Scunthorpe, they've gone away and been really successful. So actually, we're not going to talk about them because they've moved away. There must be, everybody is born somewhere and is from somewhere. And there must be more than, one or two people from this area who've done something notable. I had a really interesting talk from Gordon a few months ago about what he's been doing. Geez, that blew my mind what I was talking about there. But do we have these role models? And if not, where can we grab them?
So we absolutely do. There's no question about that. We absolutely do. It's about sort of finding them and sort of connecting them to the people who need them, which I think are our young people coming through the ranks now who, it's really bloody tough being a kid in 2024. And, a lot of kids in Scunthorpe are growing up in really sort of challenging circumstances and are crying out for that sort of inspiration and those positive models, role models. I genuinely believe that. So those role models are absolutely out there. You mentioned sort of Gordon. We've got sort of amazing people. We've got people who've grown up in Scunthorpe, had amazing careers in acting. We've got people who've grown up in Scunthorpe, gone and had amazing careers in science at literally the sort of highest levels of their profession. Globally, John Leggett College, and I think the same for North Lindsay, have amazing sort of alumni networks. I think just the other day, Leon at John Leggett had a King's Counsel, one of the top barristers in the country who, was at Leggett 20 years ago, coming and talking to those students. So those role models absolutely exist. There is umpteen evidence that you grow up in Scunthorpe and you can go on and have an amazing life and career. We just need to find a way of bring more of those people back into the conversation.
Could I add to that though?
Yeah,
I would say, not to be criticize or anything, but there were times when I went to John Leggett and I went to North Lindsay, and I didn't get any GCSEs, so I had to do an extra GMVQ, and then I did a BTEC National Diploma. And I remember going back to North Lindsay College going, I've made movies, I've done this, and genuinely, they didn't care. They didn't. I said, I'll come and I'll do a presentation. I'll talk about how I did this, and I'll be honest, no one got back to me, and that's happened to me a few times. And I've had to go above and beyond to say, I've made films, I've done this. Like nobody knocks on your door and going, oh, you're from Scunthorpe. So it was. I mean, you had to do it, and you live in London, So and that's not criticism, but we're out. I'm not counting myself in that. You guys are out there. Use this space, connect, go above and beyond. That's what I would say.
Because I must admit, there are those role models out there. Absolutely. We know that just from our own networks. I do feel like there's an element still of, what's the best way to describe it? There's still that negativity sometimes from some people that have left. It's brilliant that we've got people on the panel that are like, no, I'm from Scunthorpe and I'm proud of it. Really not fussed. There are still people that enjoy just pretending they're from Lincoln, or mentioning just Lincolnshire as a whole, and don't want to bring the Scunthorpe sort of angle in for whatever reason. Do you know what I mean? Whatever reason that they've actually left. So there are some out there that are really happy about it. But, there was always stories around, and how true it is or not, but, like Joan Plowright from the area didn't want the theatre named that. That there's some of those sort of stories still attached to people that have been from the town because they've had some negative experiences and it's not been the experience they want. So for me as well, yes, we have absolutely got people that we can link with, but how do we still bring in some of the other people that have maybe left and haven't had the good experiences? How do we potentially shape some of that conversation?
I think there's a key part, because we could definitely drift into the left and come back, but we've also got great successes that have remained and stayed and come through the area, and they're actually some of the other more important stories to tell. But I think one of the reflections for me is part of our strength as individuals from the area is also part of our weaknesses. So if I was in Mablethorpe, which is another place that exists, I went to holiday with my nan every year.
By the sea.
Yeah,
It is by the sea, actually. And that's where one of the conversations I had again with people in Mablethorpe who thought Scunthorpe was still by the sea. But they were building a brand new sort of big, shiny community-type based environment for businesses to come together. Really great aspirations to do so. I mean, social housing and some of the science going on in terms of understanding well-being, fantastic things. And they said one of their biggest challenges there was actually getting people from the local community to go, because it was that aspirational as a venue to actually come to it, because they felt it wasn't for them. So part of that underdog mentality, which I definitely in my head have always existed. I've always been told I can't do stuff, or you can't do that, you can't do this. And that instantly just from this area, it has that great strength to go, well, I can. And actually, I'll tell you, I'm from Scunthorpe. This is what it means. And I'll see you in a month and it'll be done. You know, it's always the great analogy, which is, you know, don't say it can't be done to the people that are already doing it, or whatever it is. Bad analogy. But that underdog, that's one of our challenges, and that's one of the things for us to break is to say, well, it's not for me. We don't need that. We'll do it ourselves. And I don't know how, but there is something around that because we want to attract industries in. We want to bring things in that are different and new and unique. And this network and connection is one of those ways to be able to do that. In order to do that, there's a bit of a change in the personality, which is dropping down some of those walls and not being quite so independent, which I'm 100% guilty of and something I need to change, and how we do that and welcome in sort of competition or whatever it be.
Yeah, and it is a challenge because you know we're British for one thing, and that means that we're not keen to sort of toot our own horns, unless you're sort of 17 and an influencer. But so what we need to do, you know, it's almost like, you know, I walk around the town here and you don't see billboards, you don't see big advertising hoardings in small towns outside of, you know, big sort of metropolises or metropoli. But you know, it's almost like we need to do that. Get people up on boards that, you know, people say in advertising and marketing that, you know, people want to see people who look like them. And, you know, that is quite a common theme at the moment, isn't it? And quite rightly so. You want to see that sort of diversity of background, of opinion, of experience. And I think that's something that we need to be pushing here as a group here. You know, Scunthorpe Tomorrow is not here to fix stuff. That's not going to happen. You know, everyone's giving their time for this, and it's absolutely brilliant to see 70 people giving a morning up to come here and talk and to share some ideas. But we've got to make something happen. And this has got to be that sort of catalyst for people going and doing something. So if you're sitting here today thinking, oh, that's a good idea, you know, maybe I could just tell somebody about that, or maybe if we just pull on that thread, do that and tell us about it and tell us how it's gone and engage people in it and see what, you know, the guys on the panel here, the rest of the people in the group, you know, how can they help? How can they help make that idea happen? Karen, do you want to say?
Well, only because we're going to be doing this in one of the breakout rooms anyway, chatting about changing the narrative. Because one of the things was I asked, like I say, friends from Wilmslow, how would you describe the town we're from? Got some really positive things back. Asked my husband, not as positive. And actually, you know, not as... And I'm sitting there thinking, what are we doing? You know, like we're people that live in this area. I did the same in a WhatsApp group with friends from school. All of us still live in North Lincolnshire. A few have gone out to villages, but, you know, the majority is still Scunthorpe. Not as positive, you know, and I'm there trying to champion that stuff. Well, what about this? And what about this? And what about, you know, all the positive words that we've got up there? It's not people's automatic go-to sometimes when they're from this town, and actually challenging that narrative. So straight away with him, I was like, well, really, think about it. You know, how are we any different from, and blah, blah, blah. And similarly, you know, we've got really good links, we've got this, we've got that. He's like, yeah, I suppose. You know, like, didn't see it. And that, for me, is a real biggie for this area, is for some reason some people in the area seem to enjoy focusing on those negatives, which thankfully doesn't seem to be the vibe in here today, obviously, which is really, really good. But how do we keep that going? How do we keep that with other people?
I do think we need to be a bit careful because we have this kind of, it's almost like an echo chamber, isn't it, in here? These people, you know, everybody, you guys who've turned up today have put your hands up and said, right, I'm going to come. There are more people who haven't, and we couldn't have fit any more people in. But that's cool. But we want more people to do this, but we've got to almost sort of, we can spend time trying to convince the negative people to be positive, but that's pushing water up a hill. Let's not do that. Let's harness the people who are positive and the people who've got ideas and the people who have been proactive and want to continue to be that way. And let's get those little groups. We talk in so my agency. We focus really on brands that put people and the planet first, and we say, right, look after your square meter of the planet and make sure that's absolutely spot on. And if everybody's doing that, then we're all going to be loosely fine. And I think that's kind of what the attitude that we need to take here, isn't it? Where you take all these positive ideas, you take the little words, the little sort of nubs of an idea, and run with it and turn it into something. And don't be afraid to break the traditional mould of what Scunthorpe is in people's minds, and to be afraid to try something. If it doesn't work, let's just sort of pivot and do something sort of like that and learn from what went wrong, and to make it better. And ensure in all of your respective lives, careers, it hasn't been plain sailing. You haven't just sort of gone from A to B. It's a really wiggly line, and you've probably gone back past A few times. So is there anything, one thing particular that you think makes Scunthorpe special, that you would just sort of say, well, actually, this is what we're going to hang our hat on?
I go people. I must admit, I do go people. But I know that's a bit of a cliche type of answer. But I don't, for me, and I've mentioned it before in our Scunthorpe Tomorrow groups, that focus on the steelworks and that focus on, because even the football's linked to the steelworks. And the worry for me is if all the focus is on that, if something does happen with that, what challenge is that going to bring to people's mentality where they're already worrying that we're focused in there? So it is that resilient side of things for me and more people focused, because I think if we focus almost on an individual structure or business or concept, that worries me from a future point of view. I know that's maybe not the answer you were after, but that's where that's the way my brain goes.
I'll just quickly respond to what Karen's just said, and then my one. So I was toying with saying people as well, because I just think I just get so much joy from sort of just chatting to people around here, because I mean they're my people, right? And people will just have a chat and give you time, and I mean, look, I spend a lot of my time in London now, and it's not like that. The sort of story I always tell. So my wife grew up in Dorset and then in London, and the first time I sort of brought her back up here to meet my mum and dad, we were just sort of out for a walk somewhere. And after a little while, she said, I'm really surprised, you still know so many people here. And I was like, well, what do you mean? She was like, well, you said hello to like 3 people already. I'm like, no, that's just what people do here or outside London. So I really think that is a massive strength, and we shouldn't ignore that. I guess zooming out and taking a slightly different tack, I come back to the sort of point about energy. There is just massive potential in the whole sort of Humber region, and Scunthorpe's got a massive sort of part of that. That phrase you borrowed from me earlier, Alex.
Credited to you.
That was in a room with hard-nosed, senior, national, both business people, investors, politicians. These are serious people, right? And they put their money where their mouth is, and they're the ones saying they've identified, and they're not just even looking in the UK, they're looking globally. Let's be really clear. And they're the ones saying they identify this is a place that's got potential, it's going somewhere, and where they're willing to sort of invest and create jobs and create wealth. It's sort of on all of us to make sure that actually sort of delivers sort of genuine, real benefits for our families and our communities.
It's an interesting thing when a place has potential on the sort of the jobs front, the work front, as this region does. This sort of the either side of the Humber has huge potential. There are big things coming down the line, big things here already, because that does drive a need for stuff for people to do. You can't just work somewhere. You've got to, you have evenings, you have weekends, you have daytimes if you work from home and signed into Teams pretending. There's you need we don't use Teams. So there's a lot that's required from that, but that takes a long time to move. I think that there's answering my own question about making this place, what makes this place special, is that it is seen often as an industrial town. And I've already referred to the fact that I've never been to another town that is industrial and green in a way that this place is. That's got the space. It's got the steelworks. That sort of amazing architecture looming over the town. And you can see that from sitting on a park bench in the middle of and you think, wow, what is this? And it does remind me of sort of some of the, I spent time in France when I was young, and you go down through some of the sort of industrial areas there, and you're suddenly coming across the kind of these, the big kind of power stations and things like that. And then suddenly, there's mountains and things like that. And you think, wow, that's crazy. You just don't really appreciate it. And I think that's something that we probably need to be pushing a bit more. The fact that, in a time when people are talking more about mental health, mental resilience. How do you go and get a break from the churn of every day? You go outside, just go outside. Jono and his crew, they're huge advocates of that. They want everybody to be outside all the time doing something. Just do that. And I think that the more that we can push that, I'm not saying, there's no point blaming screens and things for young people. Let them have that because they can learn a lot, but get them outside as well and get them outside looking at stuff. Get them outside looking at, the fact that it's not all bad when you see, the gases coming out of industrial centres. That's a necessary byproduct, but it's what you're doing on the other side of it to sort of counteract that. And I think there's a lot of other stuff that's going on around that. Ian, is there anything that you wanted to talk about special other than the football club? Obviously?
No, I'm trying to think like one thing. I'm struggling to think of one thing.
I guess it sounds like from your backstory that it's the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good one. I mean, I'll use the example with the football club when these incredible shirt release videos were done by the gentleman over there.
That was
just exceptional work, like genuinely, like creativity-wise, the nuances and the details or whatever is truly like world-class, lads. But everybody who kind of, in my world, that put it out there went, well, they just assumed I did it. I had nothing to do with it. Like, literally, I was just grateful that those guys, but that's the thing, really. Again, oh, well, you must have done it then because I'm like, no. And I had to make a point of saying, look, no, these lads, they live in Scunthorpe. They're from Scunthorpe. They did all this on their own dime off the back. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, which is unbelievable. So again, I think it's just about just championing yourself. Put yourself out there. You know what I mean? And I promise you, if you do, I'll find you, because we all want to support each other.
Sounds a bit threatening.
No, yeah. I will find you.
Are we still live?
Yeah. But again, Rob, Rob lives 5 minutes from me, and he reached out, but I really don't mean to sound kind of corny, but be proud of where you're from. Okay, it's tough. But I can assure you, even in lovely places, I live in West London, in Richmond, a beautiful high street. The high street is struggling. There's a lot of shops. So, but be proud of it and put yourself out there. But yeah, opportunity. I agree. When I'm speaking, kind of entrepreneurial, when I'm speaking to businesses or whatnot, a friend of mine is potentially bringing an inland fish farming into Lincolnshire, which is like a £300 million investment, right? It's huge. He's like, God, the opportunity in Lincolnshire is massive. He's from West London, you know what I mean? So he's seen it, and as you kind of touched on, serious business people that see the opportunity here.
And we just need to signpost it, don't we? Yeah,
you have to shout about it.
That signpost. Thank you. Are there anybody in the audience who's sort of brave enough, confident enough, happy enough to ask some questions? If you stick your hand up, otherwise I'm just going to ask some more. Yes, we got some. So we've got Sally, and then we come over there. So.
Hello, I'm Sally from the Pink Pig. I just wanted to ask Ian, really, whether or not you think that making a movie up here that's not called Scum or whatever it was called in Grimsby, I can't remember what it was, would be a good idea to try, as a huge push to get people to know what the area is about.
Yeah, thank you for the question. 100%. So obviously I mentioned about Scunthorpe United. One of the other reasons why I wanted to get involved in Scunthorpe United, even a few years ago, was I wanted to do a big land deal, because I think long term what I'd like to get involved in as well is a film studios, because the demand for that kind of opportunity is huge. We actually don't have enough infrastructure in this country for the amount of demand out there. So again, I did this panel at Visit Lincolnshire about bringing a film studios here. But then I thought, well, that's big, and that's going to take a huge amount of investment. But what else can I do? So just from a kind of television show standpoint, I'm making a TV series about OnlyFans, and it's a thriller, So it's about a mother and daughter, a kind of whodunit kind of thriller. And I thought, well, actually, I think it was set somewhere in Manchester. I don't know why. I thought, no, actually, I'm going to set this in Lincolnshire. I'm going to bring this show here. So yeah, I would love to make a movie. Again, I did make a film in Grimsby a few years ago. I did look in Scunthorpe, but it was almost like, oh, we don't do that. Whereas in Grimsby, it was like, yeah, go around or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Not to criticise, but I was devastated because I really wanted to make a movie in Scunthorpe. I'm proud of where I'm from, but yeah, without a doubt, I'm going to try and bring some productions here. Definitely.
It's talking about Grimsby there. That, again, as an outsider coming into the area, I looked at the difference between sort of the Grimsby and Scunthorpe, and I feel like Grimsby, because it is a sort of a destination, you have to end up there. You can't really just sort of pass through. They've really bound together in a way that has started attracting that kind of investment in, and I think that you can look at that and learn from it, and you shouldn't be like, well, Grimsby are doing it, let's do it completely differently. We don't need to be like football and VAR here. We can be like, actually, let's learn from that, and let's take a few of those really cool things and do it in our particular way. So I think there's lots of things, and maybe there's a film on a farm that can be yeah, thank you. There's a question over at the back there, Ty, right in there.
I think there's one here and then I'll...
Okay, you've got to really extend your thing out.
Hi, Liz Drury. I'm a freelance voiceover artist, and my question kind of links to what Sally's just said about the film industry. So I'm a member of the local branch of Equity, and one of the complaints that my actor friends often have is that when things are made in this area, they don't use local actors. They bring people up from London to do it. And I'm sure there's examples in other industries as well where there's a big project happening, big building project, let's say, people are brought in from outside. Why are we not using people that are on our doorstep, that have got the right training and are desperate for those jobs?
I mean, for me personally, I'm not aware of why. I would have to go out of my way to try and find that. In a way, it's there's a fantastic, very successful producer, Heather, who is from just near Skegness, and she's had to create an organisation called kind of Location Links, where there isn't a database for local actors. So I'm just going to go to the easiest route, where I'm going to go to Spotlight, and I'm going to try and find these actors. I will certainly try and reach out. But again, yeah, I'm sure there's so many actors and what, but they, how do I explain this? They've also got to put themselves out there as well. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, without a doubt, you want to try and find local talent, definitely.
So can I was lucky enough to have a bit of a tour around the Elizabeth Quarters with the Hull and Humber Chamber the other week. And again, similarly, the building company that had actually built that weren't local. So straight away, my gut was a bit like, oh, surely we've got the actual skills here. They ended up sort of explaining the fact that it was just the way that the contract had gone, and actually then looking at that agency that had come in and some of the things they'd then done with some of the local children. They'd done quite a lot with the colleges. They'd done quite a lot. So actually it wasn't it sort of twisted it round for me weirdly. Initially my gut went, oh, really? But then actually when we're talking about role models and we're talking about experiences, that larger company then did bring things into the area that would we have had the capacity to potentially do if it hadn't have been a larger business. So there is definitely, because I sit with you, Liz, on some of them things, I'm like, go local as much as possible. As Alex said, we met at the Pink Pig for our meetings. I've got a little bit of a philosophy. I'm a local business. I use local places to meet. I don't want to be going to some of your big chains. I want to be going to your small independents and meeting other small independents, because the world will then give me that back, is the way that my brain works. But there is an element sometimes for me of some of these bigger companies, if they are coming in, fine, but what are you going to put back into our community?
Yeah, and we shouldn't push back just because they're
Yeah.
a big company. Like, don't object for objection's sake.
Yeah.
It's who, it can educate people who are here, can't it? If you're bringing expertise in from outside. And I think, again, looking a bit at my own world, that we set up our agency, my wife and I, to marketing agency to give people something that wasn't actually in the area to a huge extent. So we get a lot of work experience people through the door. We've got an apprentice at the moment, our second apprentice. This is internships, giving people opportunities. And yes, they might then go to London, and we're okay with that. We'll go to Manchester, Leeds. But as long as they've given us a good couple of years of real high quality work, and then they go off, and then hopefully they'll come back in a few years' time with knowledge from other places. And I think if businesses can take that approach, then we're going to be doing some really good stuff. And I think that keeps that energy going. I think one of the difficulties is when people just become a bit sedentary and they sort of think, well, we'll just keep doing the same as we've always done. Let's do something different. Let's try something different. And I think that will drive things forward. Did you want to say something, Henry? No, fine, that's all right. Right, so we've got the question over in the corner. Thanks, Liz.
Hiya, I'm Abby, and I'm one of the organisers of Scunthorpe Pride. Hopefully you've all heard of it, but the problem I have and my team has is not a lot of people have. But just to recap, we had over 10,000 people attend our event this year. The year before, we had around 4,500, 5,000 people. And the problem we are having is that you're saying, like, ask for help, be proud. We are immensely proud of where we're from, and we work really hard to promote our event. It's not just for the gays, it is for everybody in Scunthorpe. It's a free event, and we have some amazing acts, local acts. We had Kelly Lorena come in, we got Ian Van Dalen, we had the biggest, Steps tribute in the UK come this year, and it's all funded by ourselves, along with some other funding avenues that we go down. But what we're struggling with is getting that out there, getting the message out there. Like you said, billboards, there is none. There is advertising in Scunthorpe, and when we've approached them, £500, £600, they want us to pay that money, and we're a free event for local people to advertise our area. And I'm just wondering how we tackle that, how we get help from local expertise and businesses. How do we get them on board with us to help us provide this event every year? Because this is our second year, and I don't know how long we can keep doing it, and we want to keep doing it, and we're very committed. We volunteer our time, literally all of our time. So how do we push ourselves forward? Because I come to as many of these things as I can, always put myself out there. I've got a massive big thing on the back of my T-shirt. What more can I do to get people to take us seriously? Because we are now the biggest event in Scunthorpe, hands down, since the showground days with the football. We are the biggest event. So how do we push forward for that?
Can I jump into that?
That's an awesome question.
So, great. So you said you had 10,000 attendees, right?
It was actually 12,600, but
Great.
I put an error margin onto our football cameras.
So it was an incredible success, right? So how you got to frame it then is you need to go to businesses and go, oh, do you want to be involved in something that gets 12,000 eyeballs? Like for me as a business person, I'm going, yeah, what do you want? So and I'm not saying you're doing this, by the way, but if I'm like with Scunthorpe, we're getting 4,000, 5,000 fans. People come to us, go, oh, how can we get involved in that then? So is there a possibility of potentially framing it in a way where maybe you create a bit of prospectus or something where you go out there to local businesses or big businesses and go, look, we're doing the next one, almost make it exclusive and go, look, do you want to be involved? If not, I'll go somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? So without... Great. I mean, so without necessarily, I mean, I'm sure there'll be some, hopefully there'll be some kind of local support, but I know personally if how I'm able to potentially bring these artists to do these concerts or whatever, I'm going, we've got a 10,000 seat stadium. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what? You've got what? You know what I mean? So again, maybe there's something in that potentially.
So I'm pretty lucky. I work with Hornsby's Bus and Coach, who are one of your sponsors for this year. So just from a completely practical point of view, we were quite happy to do the promotion online, sort of saying that we were there and things like that. Make it really, really easy for me. So give me a bit of a media pack that on the rundown I can literally use where I'm promoting all of your sponsors, tagging everybody in, because we were happy to do that because we were sponsoring and working with you. But, if you made it really, really easy for me with your other sponsors you've got, between us all, the reach we've got, especially online, we could then really continue to push for you and get more people there. Because I know they did do, I think, on the day, and they did a few on the run-up, but, that was things that they'd had to create, if that makes sense.
And I think this is one of the things about the broader network being able to do. So we run events. So all I would say is get in touch, we'll have a chat afterwards, because it's really easy for us to give some section of a website, talk about it, get you present on the day, because we're an event that takes place in the centre of Scunthorpe. Why are we not having that conversation? Why are we not picking up with Scunthorpe United as a collection? And there's definitely in my head, we're a great base and a venue for doing something really large and interesting in the area. We used to have the Scunthorpe Gala and things like that, which people still ask me about when we go to Outfront. But actually, why don't that thing of a big sort of Scunthorpe tomorrow-y type thing? I'm not saying I've got too much to do in it, but we can interconnect about that, because we both organise events, and then how can we mutually do that to benefit each other? And the same for, we've got these relationships already, but we've not even had that conversation. And I think if we could bring something collectively big to the area, that would be really exciting to do. And it sounds like you've already done that, so we just need kind of going back. And I didn't know that it had 10,000 attendees, so that's fantastic. So really massive, well done. It's a lot of people.
Jono's getting them all running though, now next year, don't you? Spider, Scunthorpe Pride run, and everyone's running up there.
Yeah, I just need to get them 10,000 people. If we just get them to move 5 kilometres down the road and then just start and slowly jog. Yeah.
I think you've done the right thing by asking a question at an event like this. that's a good starting point. And I think making these connections, and if your pledge is simply that you put on the wall here that you're going to connect with Jono and talk to him, brilliant. That's moving things forward. And I think that we've got to remember about that action. Let's make sure. Let's not just talk about these things. This group is not another talking shop. We have a question from Ty's taking control of the mic.
Hello, I'm Laura Matic. I have several hats. So I'm Northlink Structures and I'm the chair of the new showground Kick. And some of you may know my mother, Michelle Harness, who's recently bought a football club. So I have a couple of questions, and I suppose changing the narrative a little bit. I have a little bit of an issue with the idea that you have to leave the town to become more knowledgeable to then come back and be able to bring something to the table. And I think we're a family business. My parents have always worked here. We're in structural steel. We did a wonderful extension at John Leggett College, and part of their specification that they really, really hammered home was they would only work for companies in Lincolnshire. So ourselves, I'm just nervous talking, I'm not emotional. Ourselves, Lindham Construction, a lot of local electricians and labour, we're all bought in part of it. And I think if you want to use local, you can use local. I don't think there's an excuse. I think there's nothing this town doesn't do that you need to bring in a bigger contractor or a more knowledgeable contractor, or you're just from Scunthorpe, you're too little. There's nothing to say that company can't hold a 10,000 person venue or cater for it, or we need to bring someone in from the outside. And I think a lot of that narrative is you're only from Scunthorpe. You don't have the world experience that you need. And I think that's a lot of the pressure that's put on the young is you need to get your grades, you need to leave, you need to better yourself and then come back. And I think that's not what we need. I think we need to show my mum, she goes to B&M now or to Marks and Spencer, and she'll get stopped all the time by children and like, you're Michelle Harness, you own a football club. And she's like, no, it's not, that's not what it is. I'm just doing something that I like to do. And I think there's role models everywhere. I go into my kids' school and teach the girls about construction. And they're like, oh, do you build buildings? And we built Sally's play barn. And I always tell the kids, oh, when you go to Pink Pig and you see that steelwork, that's what we did. And my kids are like, my Uncle Matthew, he built that. And there's role models everywhere. I don't think you have to look outside of what's already here. And I think that's a little bit different to what you were trying to promote. But I think to be proud from Scunthorpe and from Lincolnshire and really look around you to see what your friends from school are doing. And, there is people out there that are successful and can bring something to the table if you hammer home that you want to develop and promote local. You can 100% do that.
And I think there's two sides to that story. So I think there's understanding and exploring through this group that principle that there are many ways in this area that you can be successful and you can move forward, but there's many industries that you simply can't. But I don't think we've really identified the ones that you can. So far as our collective, small, tiny group, we can identify those industries and areas that you can't do locally or that we struggle to do. And there are almost two sides. We need to celebrate one side, say we're actually really good at this. I mean, you steel, we should be good at this in this area. But there's other things that you can't. And if that's into kind of to acting or theatre and events, whatever side it is, there's two. And so one we need to bring into the area to create those opportunities. And then the other is finding that and exploring it, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. I think we're not necessarily advocating that people have to go and then come back with it's just going
and so and I agree with everything you said, and thank you for the question. The only thing I was going to add is I think there's just something. So I'm always really conscious about what I don't know, So as much as I love this place and I know all these sort of streets, this is where I sort of grew up and played as a kid, I have to be sort of humble about the fact that I haven't lived here full time for a long time, and so there is a lot I don't know, and I have to sort of be honest about that. So I think for me, there's just a sort of value that underpins all this about sort of recognising the value of all the different sort of voices and perspectives, and you get different things from different ones, but one is definitely not more sort of legitimate than another.
I think this is where Rob brings a huge amount of grounding to the group that we've had, where we're all kind of running around going, yeah, we can do this, and Rob's like, hang on, let's just do it properly. Let's just make sure that we're hearing everybody's voice, and then we've all got our war paint on running down the street. But yeah, that was a really, really good question. Thank you very much, Laura. I think we've got one more question. Okay, very good.
Hi, I'm Michaela. I'm wearing lots of hats today, but as a resident of Scunthorpe and having a career here, it's not a question, it's just a comment really. My career started at the Scunthorpe Telegraph. I don't know if anybody remembers the Scunthorpe Telegraph. A very proud moment of working for the local newspaper back in the day. It was the heart of the community, and it was the glue that kept a lot of people together. It had photographs of weddings, it had the death notices. We knew who the mayor was, the local dignitaries, Scunthorpe United. We were a real small community. And that's kind of gone by the wayside now, unfortunately, but that's the way of the world and communication. So I think today is just so amazing. This is so amazing for somebody locally who knows how hard it is to get networks together. And this is the glue. And I think we've made we're all part of this, hey. You've made such a great headway of getting everybody together to start this movement. And I just think you need some glue, something pivotal to keep everybody, like Abby talked about, I had no idea, Abby, that you've done those great things. But back in the day, it would have been in the local newspaper. We don't have that now. But if we could get some communication channel or something to talk about good news stories.
I think if people stop whittering on about parking on Facebook groups, I think
they
could be much more useful.
So just a comment, wanted to add that.
Thank you, Michaela. That's really good.
Mine was in follow-up to the lady over there, and how things like local authorities and government policy and how that's evaluated around things like the Social Value Act, and that using local people to do local activities. So I know people who work in the construction industry scheme, for instance, and they're travelling miles for work, and then we've got people travelling miles the other way, so they're crossing on the motorway, when actually those skills are available locally. And yes, it may be more difficult and that type of thing, but is it really, or is it they just feel it's easier? And the impact that then has on families and family breakdowns, that you've then got parents that are absent a lot of the time. I think industry has a great deal, and the local authorities and commissioners, how are they assessing and evaluating what they're doing in relation to making sure that people comply with what they say they're doing, and how many apprenticeships and all of those things, and how do we make that accountable?
See, I don't know the answer. I was going to say, I don't know the answer to some of those, because there's Rob Waltham in the room. We could double check in with Rob and ask him a few of those.
He suddenly left the room.
Yeah, he's ran. But my thoughts around some of that is, are people just always doing what they've always done? Are they just bidding for tenders down in the south because they think that's where the money is, and not looking at some of the local processes, and the same then vice versa? Are they actually moving? Because again, similarly, I know traffic management companies who are based here and all their work's down south. And like you say, you see them, because weirdly, I now look at the back of road signs, to sort of think, like, oh, that's not a local number. I wonder where they're coming from. So is it just a case of people aren't conscious of it, maybe? With regards to the local government type side of things, I'm looking at you, but I don't think that is you. But I don't
He did say government earlier.
He did, didn't he? So it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. But, I don't know how we do keep a sort of check on that. I don't know the answer to that part.
So I don't have a perfect answer to the question. I'm not close enough to it either. I mean, I guess just the sort of two things that went through my head, Sean, were one, I think, as you sort of referred to earlier, Karen, there will be just some sort of challenges in terms of, I mean, if you're talking about big contracts and how those are sort of set up, there are just sort of certain sort of challenges around that, and I guess being mindful of that. But I guess the other thing in my mind is, I just think we've got to start doing some things differently to sort of meet the moment here. I mean, the world's on fire. no one's had a pay rise in more than a decade. People are just exhausted. It's so hard for so many people that I just think we've got to sort of start taking some chances and taking some punts and doing some things differently. And again, that sort of starts with all of us. And if we're serious about this, if we really sort of love this place and we want to sort of create opportunities for our people, then we've all got to start sort of thinking about what we can do. And the sort of our one very tiny example of that in Scunthorpe Tomorrow is, we sort of created our website earlier this year. I mean, one level it was sort of easy because we're a bunch of volunteers, so we didn't have any cash to spend on getting a website designed anyway. But we had a fantastic local web developer, a guy called Justin, who's sort of based locally, who helped us with that. But actually, rather than Justin go away and sort of build that website, amazing guy. He's not here today, why I can sort of sing his praises without him sort of intervening. But he basically gifted his time to work with half a dozen T-level students at North Lindsay to build our website. So creating opportunities for those young people to actually develop those skills. So that's a tiny example, but I think if we all are thinking with that sort of mindset, then it doesn't answer your question by any means in its entirety, but it's a step in the right direction.
And I think that there's enough free work out there to keep you going for the rest of your life, right? So it's very easy to say, well, businesses should bring in people for work experience. You should do this, do that, do stuff for free, and it's difficult because you're trying to make money, right? As a business, that's what you're trying to do, and as an employee, you're trying to get paid and do the best job and work your way through. But I think if everybody's thinking, well, actually, if I can just do something, one day in a year that contributes, and there's 100,000 people doing a day a year. I know I do live in some kind of idealistic world in many ways, but it's just doing something. It's having that bias for action and making sure that something happens. And I think that's where I'd urge every single one of you to put that pledge on a post-it and leave it with us, because we will do something with it. We're not going to action it for you. That's your job, but we will do something with it. And this is not another group that gets set up and gets forgotten about. We've got a Christmas drink session booked in. We'll have a follow-up to this in the first quarter of next year, and the details of that will be confirmed, because there's a few kind of discussions around some pretty exciting stuff around it that we want to do, and we'd love to see all of you guys there, and bring a friend and all that. But we've got to have that bias for action. And I think that's what we're all picking up from this today. Is there any last quick question that anyone is burning desire to ask, or should we wrap this up now? I've got a hand in the corner there. Yes. We've just made it difficult for you, Ty. You've got to drag it right the way across the room.
Hi, I'm from North Lindsay College. I'm actually from the work experience team. Just going back to gaining work experience for students, it is actually more difficult than people might think. We have barriers such as companies not having the correct insurance, so they'll have public liability, not employees' liability. And we try and talk them around to how important it is for the future generation of the industries in this area, and that maybe you should look into your insurance policy to see if there's a big difference or a little difference in changing that policy over. The amount of step backs and knockbacks that we get from companies that aren't willing to give our students an opportunity and a chance to gain that work experience. And it's quite disheartening when they say, oh, sorry, we're not interested this time. We could ring back in a few months' time, or we didn't get around to looking into that. And they're not realising that they're knocking our future students back to build the industries. I mean, it's catering, it's digital, it's performing arts, it's every curriculum that we support at North Lindsay. We have so many knockbacks, and it's quite similar for apprenticeships as well, that businesses aren't looking into the future to take our students on. And it is great when we do have students that are getting the support from local businesses, where we can send maybe a handful at a time, or once they've completed their 30 hours, or T-levels that are doing 15 hours in the academic year, they will take another one on straight afterwards. But it is a struggle, and it is a bit disheartening when we do get knocked back.
That's interesting. Thank you for that. And I guess it must be when you're trying to push forward the young people who are literally the future of the country and of the town to get those knockbacks. But again, from a business perspective, we appreciate that it is always a challenge. But I think if there's anyone that can connect and help out in that way, then please do go and have a chat towards the end, and use us as well as sounding boards. I say us, Scunthorpe Tomorrow. If you've got any questions or if you've got something or a challenge, you just want to float something through, drop us a note. Connect with us on LinkedIn, come through the website, however you want to do that. That would be just brilliant, because we've got to keep the energy up. I don't want everyone to leave today and then just kind of roll into the weekend and then looking forward to next week again. Just take some time to have a think about it. Reflect on the way home, whether you're walking, on the bus, driving, however you got here. Go and have a think about what you can do. So I just want to wrap this up, because we're going to go into the breakouts. Everyone gets a chance to stand up, shake around, and contribute in that way. Would you guys want to leave a personal pledge, or are you going to save that for your post-its at the end? Is anyone ready and raring to go? We've got some people looking at the floor. Karen's always ready.
I'm born ready. Born ready.
Karen's got a whole notebook of prep.
I've been prepping for today all week. My personal I have just started doing some work with Scunthorpe Rugby Club. We're 5 for 5 at the minute. We're top of the table. Do you know what I mean? We're aiming towards level 4. Rugby. So my personal pledge is to tell you all that now, which is exactly what I've just done. And we've got our next home game next Saturday. Come to Heslin Park. Get in touch with me if you want to have a bit of a look around, because I am absolutely on a mission. Our football team's doing, well. We're aiming forwards. We're linking with the football team as well, because it's not, wrong shaped ball and all that jazz. We're looking at how, as a community, through sport, through sort of getting people outdoors, how we can link in together, because rugby's been doing some stuff as well with curlies. We've been getting the rugby team on some things. So there's my pledge, is just to absolutely push as much sport as possible down people's throats.
It's
in
amazing.
This area.
Sport really does pull people together. It's not just about, you look at what you have at your respective clubs, and it's not just about the pitch. It's about everything else that goes on around it. There's only a game played once or twice a week. What else goes on at that place? How can it be a hub for the local community and the communities that can start doing new stuff there? How can we use that space in a really effective way to pull people together? 350
kids every other Sunday at mini juniors. Do you know what I mean? And the parents there, the community is amazing. It's brilliant. So there's pledges, rugby for me at the minute.
Very good.
As you've already said, Scunthorpe Tomorrow is going. This is the start of something. By no means the sort of final destination, and there's going to be sort of more coming out. By the way, if you're here today, you're on our list now. There's no escape, so you will be hearing from us.
Another threat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, we're still live, aren't we?
Yeah, being recorded.
So my sort of personal pledge around that, I think, is around listening, actually. And I've just learned actually so much already today, just from some of the questions and some of the sort of conversations over sort of coffee already. And I think as we grow, the sort of power of this is hearing from everyone. I had no idea, for example, that there is that really practical issue around sort of insurance and that being a barrier to work experience that would just never have occurred to me. So I think my sort of personal pledge is as this movement grows and it is growing and will grow, that we keep sort of listening and being real. There's loads of people who couldn't make it today, right? We're all really lucky that we can take a morning out on a weekday to come and have a conversation like this. So that's my personal pledge.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
For me, my pledge is my time and commitment to this, because I really truly believe in all of it. So I would say the obvious one is Scunthorpe United is your club. It will always be accessible to you. So that's something that I certainly pledge, and my experience from a creative perspective as well. So if there are any kind of budding filmmakers or storytellers, animators, whatever it is, I will give you my email. We will communicate, and hopefully there'll be like monthly chats or whatnot, or like social media groups or whatnot. I will always be on there. So that's my pledge.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. The sport thing, just don't be, if you don't like sport, don't be put off by that. It's just a community. It's just a group of people together. Let the people, I love sport, so I'm all in for this, but just let the people go and do their sporty stuff, and then, see what else you can bring to it. Okay, so if you put off,
I mean, Scunthorpe United is a media business. It's a restaurant. It's hospitality. It's so much more than what goes on for 90 minutes, 1 or twice a week.
And the businesses that they support down the supply chain, it's just amazing.
The network we've got as a club, it's accessible to you guys. Come and get it.
Brilliant, thank you. John, have you got to...
Well, I kind of have to now because
and yours has got to be the best.
Right. So I'm thinking I'm going to take a career in acting because
don't do it.
Yeah. No. Right. Okay. That's how.
No, do it.
You can bring your Scunthorpe accent into play, can't you?
Well, yeah. I mean, what is the Scunthorpe accent? It's another whole debate that I've had with many people outside of it. I think for me, sat kind of mulling in the background, and I massively overcommit to loads of stuff, so I'm not going to do that. But what I will say is, I think for this network, one of the things that in my head is a pledge is going, how do we actually, it's great coming together on days like this, but actually to make it more dynamic and quicker, because there's a very specific challenge that was raised over there about insurance. There may be opportunities that come up. How do we create this network to accelerate that process? So if someone goes, I'm looking for this for a local business. Anyone got any ideas or anything? How do we accelerate that? Because we can't wait for a monthly forum. Otherwise, we just come around and have a chat and lovely coffee. Great coffee, by the way. I guess my pledge thing is we are currently underway, thanks to the support of Sean, supporting a charity to launch in the area for us for physical activity. Just to stick on the sport thing again, we hire Quibble Park twice a week, and we have hundreds of people now attending that and getting active. So I'm going to continue my pledge to get people active in the area. And I think the only thing that niggles in the back of my head is just listening to a few conversations we've had so far is I do think we've got an opportunity to bring something big to the area. I don't know what that is. That's a concert, that's a festival, that's something. It's a great location for it. I'm not overly committing to it, but just from the collective conversations, there's something there that we could do because we don't have as much and others do. So we should steal that.
I'm going to ask Alex and Ollie and Tom to edit it so it says that you are committing to it. We're just going to cut that word out. Sorry. No. Brilliant. So that's cool. And I'll jump in with something that. So my pledge, because I think that you've got to show young people the positives of an area, and whether that's your own young people, as in my children, or people you work with. So I've been thinking about my pledge leading up to this, and I think it's a bit lame, really, but it's just to bring my kids here more and to show them more of what Scunthorpe has to offer. And they're 10 and 12, so they're at that age where they're starting to sort of soak stuff up. And I want them to be used to the fact that going to Scunthorpe is a treat, is also normal, and it's fun, and there's loads of cool stuff to do. And it's not just about going into Scunthorpe, into a shop. Actually, it's going in and around and seeing the people and experiencing stuff and seeing the stuff that is a challenge. We've talked about the deprivation. See that. What can you do to make that, to make a change to that? And I think young people are really passionate about that sort of thing now. So what can we do to harness that? So that's quite a simple pledge from me, but hopefully that's given you guys a bit of a flavour of the sort of things that that we're thinking about. And I think we're all incredibly grateful for the input that you've given to the panel today. So thank you for your questions. Thank you for listening. Thank you so much to each and every one of our delightful, glamorous panel of people here. If you have questions, please do hang around at the end to talk to them separately. We're going to be milling about for an hour or so over lunch. We'll just take a really sort of short break and then go into the breakout sessions, which will kind of pile through, and then come back for a quick review of that, and then move on. Okay, awesome. Thank you very much, everybody.